there, cats and kittens, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The MonkeyBoy Presents the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss. And today I'm happy to bring you the 14th special edition in the collection, Trigon the Terrible. This is another villain, if you couldn't tell, one of the Teen Titans' greatest and oldest foes, a demon whose power level is almost godlike, honestly, and it's also Raven's father, which makes him a pretty unique villain in the DC. What is it with the Teen Titans and a lot of their villains being the fathers of teammates on this superhero team? As is customary, of course, you can see the cover does not have his name anywhere, nor is it numbered. It simply says Special Edition underneath this Superhero Collection logo. And, of course, another customary thing with the Special Edition figures is we'll take a quick look at the packaging. As you can see, his packaging has the Superhero Collection logo in bright red on the front, along with the seal of approval in the corner. Both sides of the packaging also feature Trigon's big, nasty face shouting, which is the same artwork that is featured on the cover of the magazine. And finally, when you take that slipcase off, you can see there's a little picture window for him if you want to keep him displayed in the packaging. And the box for Trigon is much larger than the regular figures and a slightly different color, a little bit darker in color. For those of you aware of Trigon the Terrible, chances are you know him from his most famous appearance, I think, on the animated cartoon show Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans show, not the recent Teen Titans Go show. He has also recently appeared in the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. He's not a playable character, but he is featured in one of Raven's abilities, which is pretty neat. And he has most recently appeared on Teen Titans Go, the brand new animated Teen Titans cartoon show on Cartoon Network, which you either love or you hate. I kind of dig it. I take it for what it is, a very tongue-in-cheek sort of representation. Anyway, for those of you unaware of Trigon the Terrible, well, that of course is why we have the magazine, which will tell you everything you need to know about one of the potential rulers of the underworld. And then we'll take a look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a really nice figure, everybody. The special editions continue to impress me. Trigon is no exception. And also, thank you guys for being patient. I know it's been a while since I posted a video, but with the holidays, Christmas, and work and all that good stuff getting in the way, it took a little while to get it posted. So I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the 14th special edition from the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, Trigon the Terrible. First up, the character section. It's discovered that Trigon the Terrible is the literal living embodiment of fear and rules over a hellish dimension. He was born out of pure evil after a group of pacifists left the Earth to found a peaceful spiritual realm. The evil contained within them flowed into the baby Trigon as he was born, and mere moments after his birth, he killed everyone around him. By the age of 6, he had destroyed an entire planet, and at the age of 30, he had become the absolute ruler of his home dimension, enslaving millions of worlds. Tired of ruling over just his dimension, he turned his sights to others, including the realm that contained Earth. Posing as the devil for a group of demonic cultists, he successfully seduced and sired a daughter with one of the cult members. After discovering she was carrying the offspring of a world-conquering dimensional demon, the girl named Angela Roth was saved by a kindly old gentleman who turned out to be a wizard from the peaceful world of Azarath. Angela was made a member of this pacifist society and was renamed Arella. Months later, she gave birth to a daughter whom they named Raven, who was quickly given over for training and protection to the High Priestess of Azarath herself, Azar. on his way to enslave all of Earth, Raven left Azarath at the age of 18 and sought out a group of superpowered teenagers she had heard about, once known as the Teen Titans. She convinced the currently disbanded team to get back together and add new members to their roster, including Raven herself, to combat the oncoming evil of her father Trigon. Proved too much for the teenaged heroes and ultimately conquered New York City, and then began to slowly take over the world. Knowing they were completely outmatched, Raven begged for him to spare the Earth and her friends if she would willingly join his side and return with him to his home dimension. He agreed, taking her back to his homeworld, where Raven watched firsthand how cruel her father could be when he killed a young girl for simply calling him a monster, and then went on to eradicate an entire planet that decided to defy him. After helping the Teen Titans rescue her daughter Raven and teleporting them back to Earth, Arella stayed behind to seal the portal and ensure that Trigon would not follow. Unfortunately, Trigon the Terrible would return years later after consolidating his power. He had grown to the size of a giant, turned the Titan Tower into a stone throne for him to sit atop, and had successfully enslaved Raven, twisting her features so she'd look more like her father. The last couple of pages bring us up to speed with the character, at least at the time of this publication. Raven discovered that her father was no longer the powerful demon he had once been, after suffering his last defeat at the hands of the Teen Titans, and then countless other attacks from a number of other infernal rivals. We also learn that Raven is no longer the only living offspring that Trigon has, and that he has a number of sons, each one able to channel one of the 7 deadly sins. The boys eventually revealed to Raven they were partly the reason that Trigon had grown so powerless, after siphoning off some of his own power for themselves. When Trigon's boys tried to take over the Earth, they were handily defeated by their big sister Raven, who proved once and for all she is still the most powerful child of Trigon. Next, we look at a few of Trigon's classic stories. First up, the new Teen Titans. In these first 6 issues, the legendary team of writer Marv Wolfman and George Perez managed to take a team of teenage sidekicks whose plotlines were honestly pretty silly and gimmicky, and give them a facelift, add a roster of new teenage heroes who weren't simple sidekicks, and a ton of new villains who were actual threats to the entire DCU, making the new Teen Titans one of the most successful comic books for DC. These early issues also introduced their greatest threat, Trigon the Terrible, who was not just the father of one of their newest members, Raven, but was also directly responsible for the formation of the new Teen Titans. Next, we look at the new Teen Titans, the Terror of Trigon. This epic, horrifying story sees the return of Trigon the Terrible. It ratchets up the horror and the suspense. The illustrations are ridiculously detailed. It shows that Trigon is almost literally the devil incarnate, a vile, evil creature intent on corrupting all of Earth. He kills billions in this story, matter-of-factly tortures the citizens of New York City, and our heroes, the Teen Titans. But ultimately the story is about redemption and the power of love and what it means to be a true hero. It's a fantastic tale that's definitely worth checking out. And finally, we take a look at Titans, Old Friends. This story takes place several years later after the new Teen Titans have sort of gone their separate ways and become heroes all their own. Meanwhile, the younger Teen Titans who have taken over have been attacked by supernatural forces. Nightwing, formerly the original Boy Wonder Robin, reunites the former new Teen Titans, now calling themselves simply the Titans, in an effort to discover what exactly is going on. It's eventually revealed that Trigon is now in a weakened and near powerless state, and that it's actually his sons who are carrying out the attacks. It's a fun story that reintroduces Trigon in a unique way, and also introduces us to the sons of Trigon. Trigon's Friends and Foes section features his daughter Raven and her mother Arella. And the next couple of pages feature his demonic vanguard known as Gorin, the sons of Trigon, and his greatest foes, the new Teen Titans. Finally, the original thinking section looks at some of Trigon's fellow demonic lords who have tried to corrupt the DCU. We first meet a Prince of Hell, the Lord of Lies, Neron. Much like Captain Marvel, also known as Shazam, teenager Timothy Carnes is granted the powers of 6 devils when he utters the magic word, Sabak. The half-demon Lord of Purgatory, Lord Satanus. An extraterrestrial demon, and one of the legendary 7 devils of Thanagar, Sin Eater. Another half-demon who also happens to be the sister to Lord Satanus, the current ruler of Hell, Lady Blaze. The demonic entities Abnegazar, Wrath, and Ghast, also known as the Demons 3. Ruler of the world of shadows, the Lord of the self-despised, Nagal. A fallen angel who was once the archfiend of Hell and the Lord Harrier of the bull host of heaven, Asmodel. A pure-blooded demon and one of Etrigan's greatest foes, the Archduke of Hell, Belial. And lastly, the embodiment of the darkness that existed before the creation of the universe, the ruler of the Black Lanterns, and the Lord of the Undying, Necron. And here we have Trigon the Terrible, one of the nastiest villains in the DCU, and one of the greatest enemies of the Teen Titans, and frankly, I think one of the most fantastic special editions in this entire collection. Another very impressive one. We're on a nice hot streak here with the special editions. I hope they keep going. As you can see, he is very, very beautifully sculpted. The paint is exceptional. There's really no bleeding whatsoever on him, and there were a lot of places where bleeding could have been really nasty, especially around his hips here with that belt. You can see how his skin pokes through in between those sections of the belt that wraps around him, and there's like no bleeding there whatsoever. The cape is nice, and I know it looks like it's just a lot of white and red, but believe me, his red has a lot of different tones. You can see his arm there. The musculature is really well defined with lots of great shadowing and shading. There's a great wash all over the character's flesh. And the white, while I know it looks like a lot of white, there are different shades of white. He has some pearlescent white, like on his gauntlet here, you can see this section's pearlescent, these raised sections around the center are pearlescent, but this coral, this sort of bone-looking section is a different, almost a bone white, and it's flat. It's very well done. He has that all over the place, all the way down to the boots, which are nice, his skirt thing with the skull on the belt, and the facial sculpt, the head sculpt, really well done. Even the staff that he holds, which is non-removable, which is that sort of stinks, but it is cool that it's not attached to the base at least, but it is attached to his hand. A really cool figure. I want to show you some more of the things I really do like about the figure, and some of the minor problems I have with him as well, in the next section in just a moment. Trigon stands atop the classic DC logo, and the underside of the base features his name and serial number. And to let you compare, here he is alongside some of the other demonic heroes and villains that have been released as part of the collection. Alongside all his fellow Teen Titan villains. A group shot with some of the other large-scale special editions in the collection. And finally, Trigon staring down the core members of the Teen Titans. Trigon the Terrible is a great special edition figure and a worthy character meant to be made into a special edition. The scale is incredible, the sculpt, the mold, the paint job, the musculature, shadowing, shading, all of it is exquisite. There's very little to complain about with this figure, and if you're a Teen Titans fan, you're really going to love it. As always, we'll start with the good. Pretty much everything on this guy, he's as near perfect as you can get. Love the pose, love the sculpt, love his scale. He's huge, muscular, shadowing, shading, the flesh tone. Everything about him is pretty much spot on. His boots are well done for what they are. You can see there's no bleeding on him, either onto the base or onto the red of his flesh tone. The sculpt is nice. I like the molding there of the musculature. There's also some good shadowing and shading. The white is a really cool pearlescent white too, so it breaks it up a little bit. The white loincloth that he has is also the same pearlescent sort of white, and I like how it billows between his legs. The buckle of his belt, I guess, is really nice as well. It's this demonic sort of horned head, and it's a bone sort of white. It's, again, hard to make out here, but it is a different shade of white, which is cool. And I also like how you can see the red of his flesh between that belt piece that he has that holds the front and back of the loincloth together. His upper body is extremely nice, and not just because I think the pose is pretty cool, but the musculature. He is just chiseled, and every single bit has been sculpted. Great shadowing and shading. Love the red flesh tone, and it does look like flesh even though it is red. His outstretched left arm is great. The musculature, again, is exceptional. Love the armband around the upper arm, and the bracer around his wrist is really cool too. It has different shades of white, pearlescent, and bone sort of white on that coral looking section of the bracer, and it's a great texture too. It's really neat, something you, I think, need to see in person to really appreciate. Around to the back of the figure, you can see how huge the cape is. Again, it's a really nice white, a slightly different shade of white from the other shades of white. It's billowing, it's waving, great shades and shadowing. It looks fantastic. Love how it's blowing away from him slightly too. And that crest at the top of the cape, behind his head, is, again, awesome. It looks so demonic, so freaky. It looks like it's made out of bones, or it's some sort of fossilized demon wing or something. Different textures, different shades of white. Really, really cool. The right arm, again, another fantastic sculpt. Love how it's totally different than the left hand. Has a different bracer. It's that pearlescent white and has just slight sculpt to it. Looks great. The fist is closed, and it is connected to the staff that he carries. It is not a removable staff, but it does look fantastic. It's this really nice silver metallic paint, and it has this, it looks like a snake sort of serpent with wings that has coiled its tail around his staff and has just sort of become part of the staff, which brings us to the head sculpt, which is awesome. It makes the figure. It looks just like Trigon, like he stepped out of the comic book and was rendered in a three-dimensional lead figure form. His eyes look great. His teeth look jagged. They look like fangs. The ears are big and pointed and have lots of definition and texturing. His hair has great highlights and shadows, and it doesn't look like one big piece of lead. It has wonderful sculpting in there. The horns on the head, the antlers are perfect, and I like that they're brown, not red like the rest of him. He just looks like Trigon. He looks scary. He looks terrible, and I love it. The bad. Nothing really inherently wrong with the figure, just physical imperfections on mine. The first being a tiny chip on his face that has left a white dot, but it's very small, and you only notice it if you're looking hard for it. Also, the staff in his right hand, it is slightly bent underneath the hand. That is how he came, but again, you only really notice it from certain angles and if you're really looking for it. Finally, the ugly, or maybe I should retitle it the terrible for Trigon here. You want to watch out for the horns on his head. I have heard of those coming broken in the package, and they are very fragile. The thumb on his outstretched left hand, I've also heard of that being broken, and I've seen that too, so you want to watch out for it. And the staff in the right hand, again, very fragile. If he falls, it will break. Mine did come bent in the packaging, so if you can check all of those things before you purchase, I highly recommend doing so. Overall, Trigon the Terrible is as near perfect as you can get with these figures, and I think that's as it should be with a special edition figure. They really should be nearly perfect, and Trigon totally fits the bill for being a special edition. His size, his scale, his paint, everything, the sculpt, he's perfect. He is absolutely perfect. It's one of the problems I had with Trigon. As great as that figure was with everything else, his size. Look, I mean, he's just so diminutive, especially next to a fellow demon like Trigon here. Another good reason to add him to your collection is because he's the last Teen Titans villain in this series. You pick him up and you have all of them, all 4, or 5 if you count Ravager, of course. Not only that, I recommend picking him up because he's just a great villain, and a great-looking villain who is realized perfectly in this lead figure. It's also cool having him next to his daughter, Raven, one of the key members of the Teen Titans, whether it's side by side, or facing each other down, or alongside her teammates on the Teen Titans, all taking on Trigon the Terrible in some big epic battle. It's really neat to have him. If you're a fan of the Teen Titans, if you're a fan of the villains, if you're a completionist, if you just like the special editions, pick this guy up. He is perfect and well worth adding to your personal collection. And I hope that you have enjoyed my review here of Trigon the Terrible, another fantastic special edition in this series. Please stay tuned for a quick teaser trailer of the next regular edition character in the series, issue number 103. It's another villain, which is always fun, and another member of the Flash's Rogues Gallery, who are some of my favorites. So I please hope you stay tuned for this very reflective villains teaser. As always, I'm your host, the Monkey Boy, aka Jay to his friends. Thanks for watching.